Welcome to the March 22nd, 2022 workshop meeting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. This evening, we have a hybrid meeting. We've been out of the building for a while because of COVID, and I hope we can continue the meetings in person here going forward. So Chris, this evening we have a presentation from Chris Kopp. He is with O'Connor and Davies. They're the ones that do our audit each year, village audit. So he'd like to update us on the financial report.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for allowing Melissa, another partner with the firm, and myself to present your 2021 results of the financial statements. Next slide. So what we'll talk about first is the required communications with the board. We'll then go through your 2021 general fund revenues and expenditures. That's your main operating budget. We'll talk about some of your major revenues. We put in a 5-year history of those revenues. Then we'll talk about your major expenditures and the 5-year history of those. Then we'll talk about your fund balance. And then you also do operate some other funds. We'll talk about those fund balances. And then we'll talk about your debt service. You have some bonds and installment purchase debt. So the first is management's responsibility. And as you can see on the slide, is to select and implement appropriate accounting policies for a municipality of your size and complexity. You have to present the financial statements in accordance with US GAAP. We have to establish and maintain effective internal controls over your financial reporting and your assets. You need to be in compliance with any laws, regulations, provisions of contracts and agreements. You have to provide us with all the financial records and related information so we can conduct our audit. And then you have to set the proper tone at the top. And part of that is to look at that. We look at your board minutes. We review the public sessions, make sure that people have the ability to meet with the board and to, speak their mind related to the subjects. Our responsibility, our deliverables, is our independent auditor's report. And I'm very pleased to say you received an unmodified opinion, the highest level of assurance that an auditor can provide a client. We're doing the required communications right now, and we also issue a management letter at the end of each audit. We need to communicate any fraud or illegal acts that are noted during the audit. Pleased to say there were none noted. We didn't encounter any difficulties in the conduct of the audit. There were no uncorrected misstatements. In other words, if there are any adjusting entries that we may have come across, management agreed to post them. And there were no disagreements with management. So now we move on to your general fund. And I want to point out that you also do have a fire service awards program, LOSAP program. The numbers we're going to speak about now are exclusive of the LOSAP program. So the first column is your original budget. The second column is your final budget after any board modifications during the course of the year. We have your actuals, and then we have your variance with the budget. So if you look at the first column and you go to the third number up from the bottom, you'll see a nice dash there. What that means is when you adopted your budget, you did not anticipate the use of any fund balance. So you didn't appropriate any surplus in the prior year. When you go to the final budget column, again, the good news is that you didn't dip into your reserves. You didn't have to transfer any money out of your fund balance. Now we go to the third column, and if you look up, you'll see that the number 504,098 is there. What that means is you've actually generated a surplus of $504,098. And how did we do that? You'll see the first line, you see the revenues. You came in about 356,000 better on revenues than anticipated. On expenditures, you came in under by 733,000. And then you come down to the other financing sources, and there you did come up short by 585,000, basically because you didn't need the transfer in from the water district this year to supplement the expenditures of the general fund. So what I'll do now is turn it over to Melissa. She was the on-site manager, and as I said, she was the partner on the job, and she'll talk about your major revenues and some of the variances.
Thanks, Chris. So the layout of this slide is similar to the previous one, except we've added a prior year column for 2020. We do identify the major revenues above. We try to get a good coverage. You can see at the bottom, we did get a coverage of about 96%. The first line I want to take you on is going to be the pilot, your payment in lieu of taxes. That's the second line from the top. You can see that the village received $2.4 million. With the pilot agreement winding down, it was declined from last year at the 2.7 million. Looking forward, the agreement stipulated a payment of 1.7 million for the 2022 year, which is the last year of the agreement. The next line down is your non-property tax distribution from the county. That's going to represent your sales tax. You can see the village anticipated $365,000 coming in. In actuality, the village received $530,000. So it's $165,000 better than anticipated. And we did see this trend across most New York municipalities, which is based on economic activity. Next line down is your park and recreation charges. You can see that this revenue came under about $86,000 than what you anticipated. You still saw the effects from the COVID precautionary measures. In a couple of slides on the expenditures, we will show you that you had a savings to correlate with this revenue deficit. If you go down a couple of lines down to your building and alteration permits and your mortgage tax revenues, those both came in over budget, better than you anticipated. We did see a lot of people across the municipalities. This revenue was higher than anticipated. More folks were home doing works on their house that required permits, as well as refinancing and an increase in the housing activity, which caused that mortgage tax to increase. As Chris mentioned, the transfers in from the water fund, you anticipated $625,000 coming in from the water fund. The general fund, as you saw on the previous slide, had a surplus this year, so you didn't necessarily need that transfer. You do want to make sure when you're budgeting the transfer that the water fund has appropriate fund balance in order to be moved into the general fund if that's intended. Here's the 5-year revenue history. We do provide this to you when you're doing your budget preparations for the upcoming year, just so you could see a year-over-year trend. Moving on to your major expenditures. Again, we do want to get a good coverage. The expenditures, you do have a lot more categories, so we did get about 64% coverage with these individual lines above. For your police line, it is an increase in last year. The village did end up settling the police contract, so the $1 million included the increases in the salaries. If you move down to your adult recreation and your municipal pool, you can see, as I mentioned on the previous slides with the revenues, you had large savings here, about $71,000 and $120,000 for these recreation items, which again were due to the pandemic. The next couple of lines I want to cover are your employee benefits. So that's your employee retirement, your police retirement, and your hospitalization, medical, and dental benefits. There were lower rates this year than what you anticipated when preparing the budget. So you had a significant savings there. Your transfers out for your capital projects fund, you can see that the village transferred about $828,000 out of the general fund into your capital projects fund. This was just to fund several projects that you'll be incurring expenditures in the upcoming years. Again, we have provided a 5-year expenditure history for you. Again, when you're preparing the budget, it's good to have this trend.
All right, so before we talk about your fund balance, one of the things I do want to point out, and I know you're well aware of it, is that when you put this budget together, you were in the middle of a pandemic. You didn't know whether you were going to operate all your programs, not operate your programs. You had mask mandates, the recreation programs. Very difficult budget year to put together. So I think that you should be very pleased that you ended the year with a nice surplus from the programs, and you generated that surplus that you may need in future years. The other thing, as Melissa pointed out, you transferred money to your capital fund, about 400,000 or 500,000 more than you originally had thought to be able to do during the budget process. And what that does is also help you reduce your reliance on debt in the future. So you took some of this current surplus and applied it to the capital fund, and then reduced your need to pay interest on the bonds and going forward. So I think you should be pretty pleased with the results. So the next slide shows your fund balance. And if we go all the way back to 2017, if we look down at the second line up from the bottom, your unassigned fund balance, you had $59,000 of money that was free and clear for use to address emergencies, reduce future tax levies, and address any needs that the village came across. You can see that over the years now, that 59,000 through budgeting has jumped to 1,141,000. That number is a little less than 15% of your next year's budget. That 15% is one of the goals that the state controller looks at. They look anywhere between 10 and 25%. 25 would be on the very high side. That's usually for a village who's facing difficult situations going forward. But that 15% kind of mirrors the draft policy that I saw for fund balance that Marcus had shared with me. So you're right where you should be according to the anticipated policy. You'll also see that your overall fund balance is $2,094,000, but just be careful. You'll see that line that says pension benefits. That $900,000 is for your LoSAP program, so it's restricted. You can't use it for anything operating related. So it's only for use for those LoSAP payments. But again, I think you can see that your unassigned fund balance has grown nicely over the last few years through planning and hard work. The next slide, as I said, you have some other funds. You'll see your water fund. Your water fund has an overall fund balance of about 894,000, of which 500,000 here is called assigned because it can only be used for the water purposes. But again, that's grown over the last few years. And you also have 394,000 restricted for repairs. So one of the things you should do is you address any major repairs. You might want to consider utilizing that restricted reserve that you set aside to cover any major repairs. You just need to check with your village council to make sure when that money was originally put away, what it was restricted for, and to make sure that any use you have for it meets the criteria. You have a special purpose fund. You can see that's the parkland money and recreation purposes. You charge, the builders and the developers put in a fee that's restricted for those items. And then you have the capital project fund, which actually has a positive fund balance of 919,000, again, which shows that you've been funding your capital projects through your operating budget and not relying on debt to pay the major improvements. The next slide just shows that you only have one bond outstanding from 2016. You only have $380,000 due, and it's paid off in the next 5 years. And you also have some installment purchase debt, I believe. And you have leased some vehicles and repaired lights, exchanged lights for energy efficient projects and some more police vehicles in 2020. And you see that all those also are done by the year 2026. So again, all your debt is going to be paid off in the next 5 years. So I think that, as you do your budget, you should be pleased that you've almost eliminated all the debt that the village has. And that's our quick presentation. Be more than happy to answer anybody's questions.
I don't have a question, but please, our fund balance has increased. We were at a time not in a good position. So, you're right, Chris, it was a lot of work getting that back where it needed to be.
And I think it's very important, given what you're facing with Indian Point, that you've been building that reserve, because we all know that, that pilot was a major source of revenue. And I know the village is working towards, addressing that issue, but this at least helps you with some flexibility in your planning.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris, I just want to add one thought. Your report, of course, is as of May 31st, 21, and it reflects that there was only one bond outstanding. But of course, the village was in the market with an issue that closed earlier this month for 1.849. So of course, that's additional debt. that's currently outstanding, which will be reflected
Rich?
next year's audit.
Rich, why don't you introduce yourself? I don't think a lot of the board members know who you are in the public.
Pardon me, and I see my name is wrong on the screen. So I'm Richard Tortora, president with Capital Markets Advisors. We serve as the village's independent municipal advisor.
Anybody have any questions for the auditor?
I just
Oh,
have one,
question, the,
the,
oh,
the,
go ahead, said
I'm
that.
sorry, the 380,000 outstanding in the bond, that was from the road bond from 2010, is that correct?
It is from a,
We had borrowed $980,000 in 2000.
no, this was a $700,000 bond in 2016.
Okay,
I think that was, Marcus, correct me if I'm wrong, was that the 4th Street pumping station?
We're talking about the only bond that's outstanding?
Yes,
I think that was the paving. I think that was the paving. I think that's right. I think Sean is right. I think that had to do with the paving, whatever the board, Cindy, that was way before my time, but Cindy did tell me that it was paving.
yeah, I thought we left the band open for 3 to 5 years, and then we turned it into a long-term bond, because our band payment was, I think, at 1.9%. Then when we rolled it into the long-term, I think that's what it kind of reminds me of.
That's
it might have
correct.
been in
Yep, you're right.
2016, you converted it.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
Yeah.
because when we took the original bond out, we started paying not only interest but principal to shorten our payments. I think we were paying an extra $60,000 a year, so we didn't have to go for the 25 or 30 years. So I think that might be what it was, because I don't remember there ever being other bond besides that, unless I'm wrong. I just don't.
yeah, Sean, I think you're absolutely correct. Yes.
So there's 380,000 still outstanding on that, correct?
As of May of 21.
21, right.
I had one question. I didn't see all the individual charts that you were showing on the screen in my copy of the audit, but on the balance sheet, it shows a total for restricted fund balance of 953,000. So does that include that 300 something thousand that was in a capital?
No,
improvements?
that 953 is in the general fund, and that includes the 900,000 that's restricted for the LoSAP program.
Okay, it does not include the water fund or the
No,
capital.
the water,
fund.
that's in a separate number.
Separate number, okay. Thank you.
Part of that 953 is you also have $52,000 set aside for repairs in the general fund. Also, the board at some point set aside money for future repairs. So it's the 52 for the repairs and 901 for the LoSAP program.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
One question on the LoSAP. What percentage overfunded are we in that right now?
Melissa, are they overfunded?
I won't miss this.
LoSAP. Oh,
I'm trying to look, just one
I think
second.
so.
We have to pull the LoSAP report out. It
Okay.
wouldn't be in the financials.
Thank you.
Just a second.
I remember we always used to be overfunded because it was for the potential liabilities of anybody who may qualify. And if I remember correctly, we had asked the fire department to cull its list of people who they don't anticipate ever qualifying, so we didn't have to pay them. And that should have brought our percent overfunded down significantly.
It might have, but there was a change in accounting principle a few years ago where they changed how they report it. So it might have been overfunded on a cash basis, but Melissa's going to check to see if it's on an actuarial basis.
Yeah, let me.
We
get
don't do
back
that
on-
report.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll have to get back to you on that.
We can get back to you on that. We have to
Sure.
find the actuarial report.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, the funded ratio is 119%.
So
Oh,
you're
so that's
correct.
not bad at all. Okay, because we used to
That's
be over
excellent.
200%. So 119% we can definitely live with.
Thanks, Melissa.
If there's no other questions for the auditor.
I hear no other questions. Yeah.
No, thank you.
So Chris and Melissa, thank you so much. You can hang out or take off. We'll have a financial advisors talking to us about the new bond issue.
Okay. Again, thank you very much for taking the time to let us present. If there's anything we can do in the future, all you have to do is reach out and we can try to help you or stop by and answer any questions.
Okay. And thank you for presenting. It's, you know, it's the taxpayers, it's the residents' money, so they should, we should have this done. And then also, I know I've tried to get this done sooner because our audits normally are just go on too long. So I know I pushed you guys to, you know, start really and try to get it done by the end of this year. And so I appreciate, March, that we're doing the presentation. It used to take us much longer to get the audit done, so appreciate that. I'd
I
like
think
to
this
get it
year
done
our goal
before
is
the budget.
before the new year, I think.
Yeah, okay. Yep, we'll work on it, but it's always good to have it before our budget, so we know where we stand financially.
If we're not 100% ready to issue the report by your budget, feel free to reach out. Because if we have a draft report on the fund level, I'll be more than happy to come down and tell you how the funds are doing.
Okay,
Because usually the delay doesn't affect your budget process.
okay.
So I can, address that if the board so desires.
All right, great. Thank you.
All right.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Melissa.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take care.
So
You too.
next we have Richard. Richard, why don't you introduce yourself and Tom and go through your quick presentation.
Sure. This is Richard Tortora, as I said earlier. I'm the president of Capital Markets Advisors. And with us on the phone today is one of my colleagues, Tom Vousakis, who's an assistant vice president with the firm, who's been working with Marcus quite a bit in addition to myself the last year or so. And Tom was the lead on the bond financing that the village just issued earlier this month. And I think he was going to take the lead on our presentation this evening. Tom?
Hi, good evening, everyone. As Rich mentioned, I'm Tom Vousakis. I've been working with Marcus for the last couple of years on the village's debt issuance. So earlier this month, we closed on a bond financing for the village of $1,849,000. The bulk of the issue was for a sewer pump station, which the village had previously issued notes for. So we rolled that into long-term financing. In addition to that, we financed some vehicles, some software, and a few other capital projects that the village authorized to borrow for. We issued a 20-year bond. And typically when we issue financings like this, we like to do what's called a competitive sale. And what that means is we prepare documents for the bond, going over the village's finances, its economics, demographics, things like that. We prepare an official statement and a notice of sale, send that to the capital markets, to investors, and at a specific date and time, they'll submit interest rate bids for what they would purchase the bonds at and what rates the village would end up paying. So this is in comparison to what's called a negotiated sale, where an underwriter is brought on beforehand and takes the village to the market. We find that a competitive sale, because it's almost like an open auction, or a blind auction, I should say, ends up with better results for the issuer or for the village in this instance. When we do a bond issue, the market expects us to have what's called a bond rating. And there are three major rating agencies in the municipal finance world. They're Standard & Poor's, Moody's Investor Service, and Fitch Rating Agency. And I'm going to share, if I can. Marcus, do you know if I'm able to share a document?
Yes, absolutely. Just go on the share. You should, on the bottom, you should be able to share. There you go.
So there are three major rating agencies, like I said. Primarily Moody's and S&P are the two major players in the market, with Fitch being sometimes used as a secondary rating, but you only really need one when going out to the market. So for the village, we have a few in-house credit experts that we consult with. We opted to go with S&P after some discussion with them and with Marcus. And there are a few different rating categories. So the highest rated credit for both Moody's and S&P is AAA. So that's the best credit rating that municipality could receive. That's followed by the AA category. So for S&P, those have modifiers of plus, neutral, and minus. And then Moody's has 1, 2, and 3 modifiers. So in this case, AA plus would be the next highest rating, followed by AA, then AA minus. After that is the single A category, the same modifiers of plus, neutral, and minus. And then triple B is the lowest investment grade rating. So that's the lowest area you would see for typical municipalities that are going out for competitive sales. So we spoke with S&P. We had a rating call with Marcus, myself, and some colleagues, and the village did very well and ended up rating a AA minus, which is a very strong rating. So S&P noted the conservative budgeting of the village, strong management, low debt portfolio that helped to get that strong rating. And that in turn resulted in an excellent interest rate on the bonds of about 2.8%, which we were very, very happy about. The village received 2 bids on its bonds, with the low bid coming from a firm called Robert W. Baird. So over 20 years, paying 2.8% is an excellent rating, and we thought the village did very well. And I know Marcus, in conjunction with the bond issue and in speaking with S&P, we had touted the upcoming fund balance policy, which Marcus prepared. We had reviewed and felt that a 15% fund balance level was appropriate and met the market and industry standards and was a strong amount to include in the policy and something that should be pushed for.
Hey, Tom, can you explain to the board if we didn't get a bond rating, how that might have affected the interest rate?
Sure. So like I said, the industry and the markets typically expect a bond rating with any competitive bond sale. Not having a bond rating would have had a significant adverse effect on the interest rate, as well as even having a lower credit rating. So a lower rating might have, instead of 2.8%, if you were in the single A category, we did some modeling and some projecting, we would have expected something closer to 3%, which would have increased your interest expense over the life of the deal and impacted your budget. If you were in the triple B category, we likely would have seen rates in the closer to 3.25%. And again, that would have further increased your interest expense over the life of the deal and had a larger budgetary impact.
Thank you, Tom. Any questions from the board?
Is there any prepayment penalty? Can we pay more money towards it? Can we pay principal instead of just interest, or how would that affect us?
So the way the bonds are structured, you have a principal payment once a year and interest payments twice a year, so semi-annually. We structure the bonds so that each fiscal year, the village is paying roughly the same amount. It ends up coming out to, for this bond, it's about $125,000 to $130,000 per year. So we don't want big fluctuations year to year in the debt service payment, so we try to keep it relatively level. With each bond, there's what's called a call feature, and we typically have an 8-year call. So which means after 8 years, you're allowed to either refinance if rates are attractive or pay off debt ahead of time if you so choose.
So we're basically on a fixed principal and fixed interest rate for the entire length. So it's not a fluctuating principal or a fluctuating interest payment.
That's right. That's
Okay.
correct.
Thanks.
But if our finances improve, if we get some development, perhaps in the 8th year, whoever's here, in the 8th year, they can look to pay down or pay off the debt.
That's
Correct.
correct.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Anyone else?
There's another topic I think Marcus wanted us just to discuss for a moment, and that is the draft fund balance policy that the board is being asked to consider. The credit rating agencies, Standard & Poor's in particular, are very focused on policies and procedures adopted by local jurisdictions. And the reason for that is they like you to institutionalize good practices by adopting formal policies. So one of the policies that Marcus had us work on, and it went back and forth over a period of a few weeks, and I know the auditors reviewed it as well, was a draft fund balance policy. You know, how much should you have in reserves? And Chris Kopp in his presentation mentioned how significantly your fund balance has grown over the last 5 years. So much so that presently, I believe it's just over $2 million, represents about 15% of the 2023 proposed budget. And that's a good amount for you to have in reserve to weather tough economic times. So we did indeed review the policy. We made some suggested changes to it. We think it's a good policy. We think it would be to your advantage to adopt such a policy when it comes before you for consideration.
Thank you, Richard. That is something
Thank
that
you.
hopefully the board can discuss at a future meeting. And then we can discuss it at a future workshop or part of the budget process, and then we can adopt it, whenever the board is ready to adopt it. You'll have a draft ready. The board members who are there right now is included in your binders. The new board members will have it in their binders as well. And Sean, you'll get it with your binder, and then we can discuss it at a future meeting.
Thanks.
Very good. All right, thank you. Anyone have any questions, any other comments?
Well, I was just wondering how many, I know there are a lot of municipalities that do have the minimum fund balance. I remember Peekskill had it, a couple other ones. What is the percentage of municipalities in our area or Westchester County that have this similar type of policy?
I mean, I don't know officially, but I would
Okay.
venture to guess that those that have credit ratings, and most of them do have credit ratings, I would venture to guess maybe half of them have fund balance policies. The stronger jurisdictions, I would certainly expect would have them, and the larger jurisdictions certainly have them. So the county, of course, which we represent as one, the larger towns in the county certainly have them as well.
So we're the smallest one, so it figures we don't have it.
Well,
Thanks.
we're getting better and better and better as the years go by.
Your
So
numbers
thank
are
you.
certainly reflecting that. So kudos to you.
Thank you. Thank you to the team. And Marcus,
And I have to add Cindy. Cindy has been.
and Cindy too, yes, yeah. We have a good team here.
Yeah, you do. And a great team with Tom and Richard working through the S&P. We went on a conference call with S&P. It went very well. And I want to thank you guys. It was a great effort. Everybody getting together, getting all the data together to satisfy S&P to give us a pretty good rating. I really appreciate you guys work on this.
Very welcome.
Any more questions for Tom or Rich? If not, I can do my budget presentation if the board is ready.
Nothing here.
Nothing here. So
Thanks.
thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
You're very
Thank you.
welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Okay, Mary, you want me to do my real quick budget presentation?
Yes, sir. Please go over the tentative budget for 2022, 2023. This budget will start as of June 1st of this year.
Thank you for the mayor and the board and the public. This will be the first look at the my tentative budget. We're scheduled to have a public hearing on April 6th. So hopefully people have any questions, they can always email me, call me. so we could be ready for the public hearing. With that, I'm going to give you a brief presentation of the history of the finances, and then I'll show the public and the board how they can review the overall budget. So let me share my screen here for a minute. I got to find the right one. Hold on a second. That's the one I want. All right, so this is the tentative budget for 22-23. I will start with the overall summary of the proposed budget. Our proposed tentative budget for next year has a tax rate increase of 12.76. I wish it could be lower, but at least it's a lot lower than we've seen in the past. And that's mainly due to the stabilization. I hate to use the stabilization, but of the pilot payment that we get for the former Indian Point property. We're at a point where we have a certain amount of money and we have at least one more year of that, so we can balance that out a little bit. The tax rate increase is about $68.21 per thousand of assessed value. The increase on the average taxpayer is about $299 or $24.95 for the month. We did lose, one negative aspect is we did lose tax value of equaling $121,000 or 1.7% of assessed value, which equals to $64,820 in taxes. That was mainly due to one commercial piece of property in the village, which the board members know who that is, but that was the majority of it. But there was a lot of other smaller decreases throughout the village. It was a small claim or grievances filed by individuals. We had an increase in total expenditures of 4.8%, with a decrease in revenues of 0.67%, mainly due to Entergy. But most of that was actually, we got it back from the cessation fund. So almost balanced itself out. And thank God we have the cessation fund, or this tax rate increase would have been a lot higher. We do see a water rate increase of 25.3%. That was mainly due to Entergy's water consumption due to 2 meters that were broken for years and years and years, and Entergy never repaired them, and we were actually estimating them very, very high. So, and Entergy was paying that bill without repairing the meters. Holtec has repaired those 2 meters, and the consumption is a lot lower than we were assuming in the past with the estimates. So now that water rate increase was mainly due to the loss of that revenue. So some of the things that we have discussed for the future is our revenues are pretty stabilized right now. So we need other sources of revenue. We need to talk about some capital projects in your binders. At the end, you'll see capital projects. I try to do a 5-year capital projects list from all the department heads. You'll see that in part of your budget as well. We still have somewhat of reliance on the water fund transferring money to the general fund. I would like to get away from that. And then we got to talk about continuation of the reduction in taxable value. This next slide shows everybody what the taxable value has been doing for since 2003 to 2004. As you can see, the taxable value increases substantially. We had a big drop, it came back up, but now we're going on a downtrend again. So that's a concern that if we don't have redevelopment in the future, that trend will keep on going down, which means it impacts everybody else's taxes. For every loss of agreement or tax cert, then everybody else has to make the difference. This is the percentage change in the tax rate over the last couple of years. If you see, we had one real big increase in 06, 07. Small increase around there. 2021 big increase because of Holtec, Indian Point closure, and now we saw a decrease. And now this year, hopefully, we can see a trend of the taxes not being as high anymore, more reasonable numbers, I hope. So again, this is just the overview of some of the major reasons that we had an increase. We had $364,000 in increased expenditures from the prior year, mainly due to medical insurance. So even though we always concentrate on Holtec or Indian Point, we have other expenses that we can't control. So we have the retirement, New York State retirement. It was interesting, the auditor's report that you saw on the retirement seemed to stabilize. This year, in the current year that we're talking about, we actually just made it. And next year I see an increase again because New York State has a 5-year lag. So when the economy changes, it takes a couple of years to catch up. We had a couple of good years and now we're hitting a couple of bad years. So we can see that going up. And in the medical insurance, I believe because of COVID and all the expenses, that is going up as well. This is just a little pie chart of how we expend the money. On general government support, which is, running the office on a day-to-day basis. As you can see, benefits is 26%, which is the highest percentage that Village spends is between salaries and benefits. Since we provide a service, we have to provide those salaries and benefits. So this breaks up your personal services and your benefits together. So you can see that that's almost 60% of the budget. So that's what makes it tough to control expenses. The contractual, you can imagine, is gas, oil, electricity, insurance, everything else that we have to spend to keep the village running, repairs the trucks. So we have a very tight budget based on what we need to provide the services to the residents.
Marcus, can I just ask you to clarify where the highway department is on that pie chart for people that don't know the terms on that chart?
You want me to, let me go back to this one.
Yeah.
So see 7% on the bottom, transportation and home and community. So transportation is the highway department. Home and community is your sanitation. So that's about 20% of the budget is the DPW.
Thank you.
This here gives you, like, going back, this actually gives salary and benefits, and then the contractual. And contractual, like I said, is all the expenses day to day that we need to provide services to our residents. And then the next one is just showing the public safety. Public safety is police, fire, and building department. Building department is considered public safety, as well as police and fire department, which we always assume police and fire is public safety. But under the state, the building is also public safety, but it provides health and protection to all the residents. This slide shows you how the police department is broken up. Personal services and benefits, as you can imagine, is the majority of the expenses. So just to give you an idea, again, benefits and salaries is what actually drive most of the expenses. This is the wastewater expenditures, just to show you again. It's interesting to run our wastewater. The majority is contractual. Most of that is chemicals and maintaining the operation of the wastewater treatment plant. So I just want to show which is more, it's different from the public safety side of it. There's more contractual, not salary driven. So because that's what we need to run that treatment plant. Medical contribution, as you can see, if this is too much in the future for the board, if you wanted to cut a couple of years off, just let me know. I just showed long trends. As you can see, the medical insurance, this tend to level off in 2017. And by then we see an increase again based on the current year and my anticipation of what the increase is going to be in the tentative year. Retirement, as you can see, it was leveled off for a couple of years, probably starting about 2015. That's when they started changing the benefits for tier 6, and they started adding all these other requirements, and it's leveled off, but now it's picking back up again. So that's something, again, that we have to provide those payments to the state. Doesn't matter what our budget stands. And that trend has been going up since 2021. And my anticipation is going to keep on going up for the foreseeable future. So some of the revenues that we want to talk about. So we had a $51,000 reduction in revenues from the prior year. Payment in lieu of taxes with $597,000 we lost for payment for that. But we did have an increase in sales tax, as the auditor said. We had an increase in recreation fees. That's based on Nancy telling me she's going back to full strength and be able to fill the summer camp program. So we have an increase on that proposal. The increase in sewer surcharge, Holtec is paying their fair share of the service charge. We added the new building in the school, so they're paying for that as well. So I can see an increase in that service charge that we collect. And then we also had the increase in the state aid, which is really the cessation fund. So you see the difference between the loss of the pilot and the cessation fund. They mainly balance itself out, which is somewhat positive. This chart, it means a lot to me, but it shows you what our major revenues are. As you can see, the pilot, which was the big blue line, since 2015 was pretty high. As you can see, it's trending down based on the pilot, and hopefully we can agree to a new pilot with Holtec. And if we do that, hopefully we have some assuredness of what we can see in the future. And hopefully that we can stabilize the budget more by having certainty in regards to what our future payments are going to be from pilot payments.
I have a question, Marcus. Could you stay on that slide for a second?
Sure.
On your 2022, 2023, you have an increase in the cessation fund. I thought the cessation fund decreased over the time.
It goes down, but it's based on how much we lose from the pilot. So it actually come next year, we actually have a substantial increase. It goes down to 80% next year, but the pilot reduction offsets itself. So I can give you the actual detailed numbers on that, but we'll have to have a spreadsheet, how it's calculated. So even though the pilot goes down, the cessation fund comes up. So it's based on the original amount of the pilot, which was 2-point-something million.
Okay, so you're anticipating us being able to get 1.1 million from the cessation fund in the 2023, 2022
Correct.
budget. Okay.
Correct. And I can send you and the board the little spreadsheet that I did that actually identifies how the money is actually calculated.
Yeah, because I was under the impression that you went 80, 60, 40 or something like that. Is that, or 50?
Yes. And I got a good spreadsheet on that. I can share that with you. You can actually plug in the numbers and actually will calculate for you automatically.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
Because this year's current budget, it was the first time we used the cessation fund was the 2020, 2021. So that was 80%.
Correct.
So now this budget we're talking about now, 2022, 2023, we're at the 70% because it goes down 10% each year for 7 years, the cessation
Yep.
fund.
Yep. And I'll give you the calculation so you can see. I don't have it in front of me now, but I can share it with the board so you can see where it is.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, this is the transfer from the water fund to the general fund. As you can see, prior history, there was a substantial transfer from the water fund to the general fund. And the last couple of years, we have not actually transferred the money. That's because we actually worked out our finances the way that we did not need it. But hopefully I want to get away from that in the long run, let the water fund operate and balance itself out, and the general fund balance itself out without having to transfer any money back and forth. But at this point, I couldn't take more than what I've taken out to try to balance out the two budgets. But at least it shows you what the trend has been in the last couple of years. This is, I like showing this. This shows you the percentage. If you live in the village, you pay town tax, school tax, county tax, and what the village tax is overall of all your taxes. So the village tax is about 30%. So you pay $1 across the board, 30 cents is paid for the village. All the other 70% or 70 cents go to pay all the other taxes. So to show you, I think for the services that you received from the village, it's a good cost to get everything you need to have between garbage, water, sewer, snow removal, police, fire. So that's where your money is going to. This shows your average bill. Try to calculate average bill. It's about 11,000. So now this is the actual dollar amount. $11,526 is average bill. Of that, $2,647 will go to the village. 7,000 goes to the school. About 1,300 goes to the county. About 323 goes to the town.
Marcus, is the average assessment still somewhere around 4,300?
Correct. Yep. Very good. Absolutely correct. Yes.
Good memory.
Very good memory.
Sometimes.
This will show you trend of revenues and expenses. I always like to say that if the green line is above the red line, that's good. So it shows you the years of fluctuation. In the last couple of years, we've been trying to keep our revenues higher than expenses to try to show that we're budgeting appropriately and we meet all our obligations. This is the overall fund balance we just talked about between the auditors and the financial advisors. What that, I don't know how it shows on your screen, but the straight line, it's like a purple line that goes across. That's the 15% that we spoke to when we spoke to Standard & Poor's. They say they cannot recommend a percentage because officially they can't, but they say at 15% will be looked at very strong if you can maintain a 15%. And talking to our auditors, financial advisors, that's what they recommend we should be. And finally, that's where we are. I would love the board to adopt a policy in the future, and that way we could show the financial people in the state that the village is in a strong financial position. Again, these are one-time revenues because we actually were able to save money. And then this money is available for emergency. So God forbid something happens that we need to pay for something right away. We don't have to borrow for it right away. We can take the money of fund balance, fund it, and then the board will have time to either decide, okay, do you want to borrow for it, or do you want to budget for it in the near future? And that's just a savings account. For example, your roof collapses or something happens, we have the money available to take care of that emergency immediately, than waiting to borrow money to pay for those expenses. So that's what that is. So any question about PowerPoint presentation? And now I'm going to talk about a little bit about the overall budget. Anything on that?
Go for it.
All right, good. So let me share. I'm going to share that with you right now too. So just give me a minute. I can find it. Sorry about that. I just have to find it in my folder.
Okay.
Hold on a second. So this is in your binders, and we're going to put this on the website so the public can actually refer to it as well. So what I did in the binders will be on the website. It's the same presentation that I just did. So I'm just going through these screens really quick. And then what you're going to see is actually my budget message. And this is, I'm doing this that way people who don't like to look at numbers that much, but do want to understand where we are and how we got here. I actually wrote it's an 11-page budget message. So a little summary of the revenues and expenses that I try to do, try to explain the assessment row, what that means, the overall expenses, was the increase in expenses with some explanation. And what I try to do on this page, I'll make it a little bit bigger too, hopefully that would help. On this page, I try to show any expenses that were over $5,000, either positive or negative, and a little explanation why. So this gives the public and the board some places to focus on specifically on something that could make a difference in regards to either increasing expenses or reducing expenses. So this here shows you anything of expenses that actually increase or decrease over $5,000. You'll see the decrease, increase, and the reasons for each one individually. So as you can see, there's, I think I got 2 pages. And then this page is a summary of general government support, public safety, and where the major changes were. So you can see general government support went up by 71,000. The majority explanation you see above that I just showed you. Transportation went up by 16,000. Culture and recreation 33,000. Home and community actually went down by 68,000. That's because some changes in personnel, but employee benefits went up $226,000, mainly due to health insurance. And then
Marcus, can you say what page you're on? We have the budget in front of us. What
5.
page is that?
it's on page 5.
Thank you.
No problem. And then that service, even with the new bond, we went up by $83,000, but we had an old band that we were actually financed to a new bond. So the impact wasn't as high as mentioned by our financial advisors. It's really $83,000 increase in debt service. And then what I try to do here, same thing I did for expenses, I'm trying to do for revenues. Again, little explanation of how what happened with the revenues from the prior year, the reason for the changes in the revenue over the prior years, a little background and explanation about that. And I try to do the same thing. What are the major increases or decreases of $5,000 or more? So I try to do the same thing here. So they just try to give you guys and the public a little where, if you want more detail, why did this change so much? Hopefully my explanation will be able to provide that information to you. And then I did the same thing, a little table in regards to the major categories. What are the changes mainly between all the categories from the prior year? So it shows you the adopted budget and my tentative budget and what the changes were from the prior year. And what was the overall change from the prior year. Then we talk about the tax rate. Like I explained that first chart, what caused it, what's the reason for that, and what the average increase would be. Try to talk a little bit about the tax cap. I like to put that in there, but the tax cap is permanent. It will always be there. Hopefully one day, as we go into the future, maybe a future board or future manager can meet the tax cap. I don't see us doing that for some time until we get something really permanent to do with Holtec's property. Then I talked about some financial plans, some of the risks that we're talking about. Now that the pandemic is over, we still have to work with the DEC with the wastewater. As the board knows, we're working with the town to do some of the wastewater. That again, there's an IMA we have to agree with to move that forward. Our police contract expired in 21. The Teamsters expired in May of this year, so we got to talk about that as well in negotiations. Try to talk about a little bit the retirement, the New York State retirement system. It's been a while since the increase in the retirement system, but I see an increase in that happening now, and some of the reasons for that. The taxable value, why it's beginning to decrease so much. So something we have to look out for. And the pilot with Holtec, of course, and hopefully we can agree to a new pilot payment. Capital projects, at the end of your your booklet, you'll see the capital project. We'll get to that page as well so people know. The water fund, debt service, which is really the bands and bonds that we were talking about. We did the bond, but we didn't talk about, we did do a ban, and that one ban was for a police vehicle. It was actually 1% on the ban, so that's including the debt service. And then my closing comments, which of course, thank you the board and the residents and Cindy and the staff for all the hard work they've done. And then this actually gives you the budget detail, so the public and yourself can take a look at. It gives you the last year's rate, or the new rate would be, what the or the water rate increase is going to be. So this gives you a summary, and then it'll give you a detail. You can see this again, summary of general government support, public safety. But people say, "Oh, and what's general government support or public safety?" When you get in here, you'll see it. You see general government support is the village board, the judge, the judicial, executive with the mayor, financial, which is the clerk treasurer, the staff, shared services. Shared services is more or less the benefits that we talked about, and special items. And then that's broken, and then this gives you all the detail in regards to how do we get those numbers, so the public can see the historical trends, what was the current year's budget, and what my tentative budget is going to be. This will run you to every single department with all the detail. And of course, if anybody wants to go through all this stuff and has any specific questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. But again, when we have the public hearing, the department heads will all be there. And then you can talk to them and for the board and discuss any questions regarding any specific line item. So I'm going to get to the bottom. And then these are the revenues. So again, it's the trends of the prior 2 fiscal years, the current budget and my proposed budget. Again, I tried to maximize the revenues what I could and reduce the expenses as much as possible to try to keep the tax rate as low as possible and still provide the services to the village residents they're accustomed to. And then then when you get to the end of the budget, there's a little summary of the titles of the positions that the village has. So that way you can see, how much the justice court salary it costs to run the justice court, the administrative office, the treasurer, the clerk, all the departments are here in regards to what it costs personal way in regards to the services that we provide are the cost for each individual. It shows you the police department breaks up and you can see how much the police department costs and salaries. Now, this does not include all the benefits. It doesn't include health insurance, holiday pay, and all the other benefits, but it does give you an overall sense of what the salaries are for all the departments. So after you go through all those departments, then I created a 5-year capital project list, working with the department heads of what they feel they need, with somewhat of explanation on some of the things that seem to need some explanations. Some of the other things that seem pretty obvious, I need to put an explanation down. But if the board wants explanation, we could talk about that during the budget season. And then we could discuss what are the priorities of the board and the department heads and how we're going to fund those expenses in the future or in the current fiscal year. And that's everything I have regarding the budget. We'll have the budget, the public hearing on the 6th. We'll have all this placed on the website hopefully tomorrow. And then hopefully the public will have some time to review before the 6th. And like I said, everybody has my email address, my phone number, and I'll be happy to answer any questions before the public hearing or at the public hearing. Thank you so much.
Marcus, I'd like to point out that this is an excellent piece of work. And I think it's people, a normal person can follow it. You've gotten on the side of the accountant, but also on the person who doesn't know anything about accounting. So I think it's an excellent job you've done, and I appreciate all the work you've done while I was on the board here. And compared to anybody in the past, you're super, and I thank you for your work.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you so much. It really means a lot to me. I try to do something as you're a layman person we all pay taxes, and I want to make sure that if I was a taxpayer, that I will be happy with getting that information so I know how my tax money is being spent. So I appreciate that you see that. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
For years, Marcus, you've seen some of our older budgets going back years ago, and this is very intensive, shall I say. This is really good. And this year, I like the 5-year capital project schedule. I think that's important because you have to plan. It's definitely a good budget. I'm pleased with the 12.76, but there's a possibility we might be able to do better with that tax rate increase. I really feel that the taxpayers need to get a break. It's been several tough years with the closure of Entergy. And if the board and I can work together, maybe we can figure something out to even lower it, or, we'll see where we go from there. And then the other thing I'm concerned about is the water rate increase. And I do understand where that came from. You have to also consider when Entergy was open, they were using a lot more water. That's one piece of that puzzle. And then the other is the meters being repaired. So 25%, I don't know if there's something we can do to to help with that. I'm not sure, but that's just a few of the questions that I'll be asking at the hearing. Or
No
maybe
problem.
we'll
My
discuss
job
it
is,
before.
yeah, my job was to present the village board with a budget. My job is done. Now it's yours. Now it's
Yeah.
up to you to decide what you want to do with it.
Okay, great.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Of course.
Couple of things. First off, line 3120-0101, which is the police overtime. A couple of years ago, we all agreed to hire a sixth officer, and when the chief discussed and requested it, and he felt that a good portion of that increased cost would be paid for by the reduction in overtime. And I'd like to know, so far, did the hiring, it looks, I'm looking at the numbers here, and I didn't go back over several budgets for years, but it looks to me like that that the overtime expenses are down. So can we say that as anticipated, hiring the sixth officer did achieve a reduction in overtime sufficient to pay a good portion of that sixth officer's?
That's a good question. I don't want to speak for the chief, but if you see the tentative for next year actually went up. So they actually is going up. So I can let him explain to the board. what the
Yeah, I mean, I
trend has
look
been.
back, I did look back at one or two budgets and saw higher numbers, but I
Mhm.
just don't remember exactly when we hired the sixth officer and if that was if that actually did achieve that goal.
That's a good question. I'll make sure the chief has that response for you yeah, email it to you. We can discuss it at the public hearing.
Okay, thanks. I won't be here at the next meeting to get your answer.
But we'll get it to the whole, we'll get it to the board. No problem.
Okay, yeah. I also feel like your work and our attorney Stephanie Porteous's work are a large part of the success and what's been bringing this village forward over the last several years that I've been here. And I feel that your salary is lower than it should be, and I feel there should be an increase to both salaries, at least 5% to match the, cost of living alone would have been 5%, but I think that you put yours in at 106, and I think it should go, if it was 5%, it would be 108 or so. But I think the two of you deserve an increase at least sufficient to compensate for the cost of living changes over the last year or so. And you guys are the glue that keeps this whole thing going. So that would be my suggestion too.
And Nick, let me just
Board.
respond for myself. I really appreciate that. I took this job not for the salary. I took this job to help the village as much as possible. I rather see Stephanie. I actually put a $5,000 increase for Stephanie because I think that's more very deserved because of the board decision if they want to take it out or leave it in there.
I think she goes above and beyond and does
I
more
agree.
than is normally called for in her position, and I would be in favor of that.
Okay, good. So that definitely, I appreciate your thoughts about me, but like I said, I want to put the village in a good financial position. So when I leave, I feel I've done what I could for the
A couple of
village.
us wrapped around his chair.
All right, okay, well,
Thank you,
thank you.
Marcus.
I know, Anthony.
I also wanted to,
Don't think something else.
Can I just say something
It's
with
just funny.
Marcus? Our previous administrator, we were paying, I think, 125,000, if I'm not mistaken.
130.
Also, 130. Thank you. And then also, we had to pay him benefits also, which for a family now is what, 32,000 for the medical benefits? If somebody has, if it's an individual, I think it's 12,000. If it's family, it's, husband, wife, children, 32,000.
34,000 and 14,000, just to let you know.
Okay, thank you. It did go up. So with Marcus, we don't have to pay medical because he has medical already. And the salary he has here is 106. So thank you, Marcus. I mean, it really was a help to the village. Both.
Yeah.
Thank you.
and I think part of the reason is to make sure that those two people are not lost to the village. Want to keep them around as long as possible. All right, so I also wanted to ask if, in the past, we've gotten, when people have retired, they're often due a large amount. If this budget anticipates potential retirees and payouts.
Absolutely.
It's in there,
that was
okay.
that was never done in the past. I actually, the
No,
last couple of years.
something I always ask
Yep.
for and we often did not do, but yes.
That's what is
So
in there.
you accounted for that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And,
Thank you.
and let's see, I think I have one other question. I have to go back to the line in the budget, line 1930. I was looking at the expense control report, and for line 1930, this would not be reflected on your budget, but on line 1930 is judgments and claims, where the actual expended was about $80,000 more than what we had budgeted. And were those legal judgments that we can mention right now, or is
No,
there
absolutely. That was the sheetrock grievance or tax cert they filed. That's part of the money we
Oh,
borrowed.
the tax cert is under,
Yes.
oh,
Yes.
okay.
So that money actually got borrowed
Okay.
for, so we're gonna be reimbursing ourselves from that. So it was net effect to be zero, but we had to borrow for it, but we had to make that payment.
I see. Gotcha. That's it. Thank you.
Of course.
Marcus, in the budget, does this include under the attorney's lines, the ongoing litigation for the John Doe lawsuit? Have we budgeted money for that?
I believe I increased it by another 10 grand, but the bill so far has been kind of low. I don't know what the anticipation going to be. Again, if the board wants to increase it, I can't get an estimate number of where this case might be going. We do have, I don't have the budget. I got to go to that budget. Guys, if you look at if you got a page in front of you guys, 14, I think it's 14. Okay, I can look it up. I think it's 1420. I'll tell you how much we put aside for special counsel. Hold on one second.
Yeah, because I think we've expended almost $15,000 so far.
Yes, but I want to tell you exactly what I put in there, and we could always increase it.
Well, we also have to budget for any potential settlement within this next fiscal year too, if they offer us a settlement deal.
Yeah, if it's a substantial amount of money, again, my recommendation to the board would be to take it out as a ban, because we don't have that much money in the budget to cover a substantial benefit, a substantial payout.
Are we allowed to use legal fees in settling the lawsuits in the bond?
Yes, a judge, if it's a judgment, just like the tax cert, you can do a ban or a bond.
Well, that would be a new ban. You mean adding it to one that we already have, or rolling a new one out?
It'll be a new one, absolutely, yes. Hold on a second, I want to tell you exactly what we set aside. Hold on a minute. Let me get to that line. 14.4. Okay, we put $55,000 for any legal cost.
Well, 55,000 for any legal costs. That means all legal or just John Doe?
All legal.
Uh,
Again, if it's too low, if you want to increase it, you can. I just don't know what that cost would be. Like, if it's a couple $100,000, I think we'll have to borrow the money, unless we take out a fund balance. So that's a board decision. Whatever you.
Yeah,
guys
that's
want to
something
do.
we'll discuss. That's something we'll discuss as we go through the budget. Thank you.
I just think that that's woefully low. If we already spent like $15,000 in the last couple of months and we haven't even gotten to depositions or anything like that,
Yeah. Again, that's something you and the board can discuss, and we can always increase it by whatever number you want to do. Maybe maybe you can have an executive session with the law firm and maybe get an estimate from them as well. I have not met them. I have not spoken to them, and we can discuss that with the law firm themselves and see what you guys want to do.
All right. Yeah, we'll discuss that further.
Anything else, Sean?
No, I'm just worried about that future liability because
Me too.
as things get closer to depositions and trials, it could explode exponentially,
I agree. I
We gotta
would
be
agree. I would agree.
careful. We gotta be careful about discussing that too much
Yep.
because it is potential litigation. So we,
Yep, but it's
Right.
very obvious we don't have the money to do anything like that.
correct.
Anything else from the board members at all?
No, Marcus, but thank you. You did a wonderful job.
Thank you,
And-
Anthony.
Thank you for putting it in so I can read it and understand it. And I mean, it's very thorough and I'm, as I'm going through it, I mean, it breaks it down perfect for me. So thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Like I said, call me anytime if you have any questions, please.
Yeah, no, thank you. It looks great.
I just have one more question, Marcus. On the fund balance on the charts that you put up, are those calendar years or are they?
Fiscal years.
It's fiscal year. So like 2019 would be after the audit is done and after everything is settled, that's the number that you come up with?
That number is based on the actual audited financial numbers.
Okay, so that's at the, what's like, so
At
2008.
the conclusion of the fiscal year.
So yeah, as of May 31st.
Okay,
Yes,
okay. Thanks.
of course. So the only thing I gotta say to the board and to the residents is that my objective was to get the village in a strong financial position. I want to thank the board for the support through this process. We were lucky enough to work with the department heads as well to keep the expenses as low as possible. We've never overexpended any year. Our revenues came in pretty on target. And then we had savings, and those savings we put away for our rainy day fund, which we call our fund balance. I wanted to have the public know that their village is a good financial position, which I'm proud to say we are at this point. And hopefully now, even though the tax rate increases, what it is, it's not what it was a couple of years ago. So I think we're heading in a good course, and I want to thank the board and all the department heads, and especially Cindy and Sharon, for all the support they've given me for the last 3 years. And I'm very proud and happy to serve this village.
And we're lucky to have you, Marcus. Thank you so much for everything. Okay, any other? So we're good with the budget until the public hearing, and we'll have more questions for you, Marcus. Just know that. But thank you for the preliminary here, the tentative. Trustee Zachary, do you have anything for us this evening?
Yes, thank you. I think that we still have a couple of things on the agenda. Did you want to?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did we?
I thought-
But I mean, I do want to make a few parting comments, but do you want to go through the rest of the workshop?
Yeah,
stuff first?
the workshop. So we did touch base on this. Thank you for
There were a
reminding
couple
me.
of things on here, yeah.
The workshop discussions, payment to Mary Malker at a rate of $20 per hour for the extra hours that she worked for the court. We have agreed on that?
I believe we did.
We have had that discussion.
She's the
Yes,
clerk, correct?
right.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
clerk,
we did-
yeah.
yeah, we discussed that, yes.
Okay, and then the discussion to hire Deb Farnell. She's a specialized consultant to assist in the court. She has some pretty good ideas to do some work for the court. And that would also be $20 an hour. I think we discussed that,
Yes.
and we're in agreement with that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
as far- she's a temporary employee though, right? She's.
Correct,
not gonna-
yeah, yeah.
So once her workload is decreased, her services will no longer be needed, correct?
Yes. uh-huh.
Correct. Sean, I think the judge said she wanted her for a couple of weeks. Did I remember?
Yeah. No, that's what I remember. I just mixed up the names. I wanted to get the names straight for what their functions were gonna be.
So then we will have that on the April meeting. It's just an organizational meeting.
Yeah, if you want to put it off to the May meeting, that's fine as well, whatever you guys want to do.
Okay. Yeah, because usually we just do an organizational in April. And the discussion of extension of the MOU with Holtec.
According to the current MOU, it expires. We have the right to extend it for another year, but the board will have to do it. So that can be done at the May meeting. And that with the 1.2 million that we're getting right now, we'll extend it for the next fiscal year. I know we're in negotiation regarding something else, but if it doesn't work out, the board has to adopt a motion to extend it for another year. And that has to be done by May 31st.
Correct. Okay, yeah, before our budget. Yeah, we would need to, well, no, because we would already have the 1.2 million for this year that we got for the, that we got with the agreement, the interview.
Yeah, that would be for the.
That's for this year.
That'll be for 23, but you have to extend it in May of this year for
the
June
following.
of 23.
Okay, yes. All right, good. Okay, we discussed everything we needed to discuss. Trustee Zachary?
Thank you. Well, I get to talk for the last time. And I want to start by thanking the public for the honor of and privilege of serving for the last 12 years as a trustee. I think that I was involved and gave everybody a fair shake, and it was an honor to serve. I want to thank Trustee Funchin also for his hard work. You know, when you do this job, there's different ways to do it, and I've seen a number of people in this position, and when you really do it right, you got to really sacrifice some time and give up part of your free time. And I know that Trustee Funchin has done that, and I want to thank him for that same 12 years of service that we've actually been on the board together for that whole time. I also want to thank the mayor, because I don't care how hard any of the trustees work, there's nobody that works harder than her. And it's a full-time job. And, you know, you could not, the salaries make this virtually a volunteer job. There's just, you know, you could view it as a small stipend, but you could not put a dollar amount on the amount of work that Mayor Knickerbocker has done in the time I've been on the board with her. Very hard worker. I've always tried to move things in a positive direction, you know, to make the village a better place. It's a good place and it's getting better. And the same things that were important to me as a trustee are still going to be important to me as a resident. It's not a separation. And so, having studied at the Eileen Apsinger School of Residency, I plan on coming to meetings and asking questions and making comments and being involved as much as possible, because all those things that I've been working on mean a lot to me as a resident, not just as a trustee. I want to congratulate the new trustees on their victory, Steve Laker and Dan Stewart, who I have not met. I don't know if Dan is on the Zoom tonight, but congratulations to those two. I want to emphasize to the new trustees the importance of training. Marcus and other people on the board and in the office could probably direct you to a lot of the great opportunities. There's NICOM runs training annual conferences where they run a lot of workshops and talking to people and picking up literature, great ways to sort of get on board with all the things you need to know. There is a lot to know, you know, in terms of planning and zoning and budgeting and, you know, the legalities of the meetings and a lot of the things we do. There's a lot to absorb, and there is a learning, you know, there is a learning curve. You do need to, but you do need to start. And if you, you know, and if you do not make an effort to do as much of that as you have time to do, you're really doing a disservice to the people that gave you their confidence. The word trustee means trust. They put their trust in you. So that's what you have to do. I also want to just address that I know that there was, after some comments I made at the caucus, there was people felt that I was anti-police, and I know that that had probably at least some role in the outcome of this election. I'm kind of disappointed in that rumor because, well, you weigh things. Everything's not always 100% black and white. When we lost all the revenue from Indian Point, we had to look at different policing options. And just because you got to do your homework and you got to look at it and be able to say, well, we're going to keep our police because we don't want to save a little bit of money and have worse policing. We have a great police force. I've always supported that police force. I personally, as a resident, am very glad to pay that share of my taxes to have the level of service we have with the police here. In 12 years, I did nothing to in any way challenge having our own police. And I also did vote in favor of hiring the 6th officer when the chief came to us. So I'm a little disappointed in that rumor. It's a false rumor, but it's water under the bridge now. And finally, I just wanted to mention a couple of things that I have been working on. I hope that the board will continue to pursue. I know that our engineer is currently working with the DEC to get the permits to add the paddle sport dock at Lentz Cove. That's a park that, well, we've had a lot of successes, but in 12 years, I don't think we've really fixed up that park at all, and I think it's time. So I want to encourage this board to continue with the plan for that paddle sport dock and to take the $228,000 that the accountant just told we have in the recreation fund and put it to good use. Come up with a plan for that park, whether it's adding a playground, putting new benches. There's a lot of things that could be done to make that, just to clean it up. It's not, it's a beautiful spot and a little landscaping and a couple of features. So I encourage the board to please continue and let's get that park, something that we could, more of a jewel, something we could be proud of. When I was involved with the local waterfront revitalization plan, and there was a separate when we did one meeting, there was a separate task force, a group discussing it. And the biggest comment was, the place is run down and falling apart. So let's fix it up and let's be proud of it. As far as something else, we're in the middle of the rezoning of the Indian Point property. I will come as a resident because I'm really, interested to see how that goes, and I'll make comments as a resident. But I'd like to encourage the board to pursue this now and to keep that northern parcel mixed use, create open space so the public has access to the river. That could be another jewel for this village if something like that is if we can get some tax revenue out of it and create open space. I think that would be a beautiful thing for this village and the area in general. A lot of times people say, well, why should we do this? Because people are going to come from all over. But I know a lot of people that go walking on the Croton waterfront, that go hiking in Blue Mountain. We have to look at ourselves as part of the whole of the, we're part of a larger community, and we need to do the best we can with what we have. And it would be public space. I want to also make another suggestion, my little parting suggestion.
Oh, okay.
Thinking about it, there are the commercial properties for Indian Point that are just south of the nuclear portion of the plant along Westchester Avenue. And those are properties that won't necessarily get released for development right away. But I think the board should look at creating an industrial park there. And I don't know how this would work legally. There'd have to be some incentives, but I think that the industrial, if we can create an industrial park there where there's also already commercial operations like the sheetrock plant, we could probably there is a need for commercial space. And it could bring in tax revenue if we can create an industrial park there and eliminate the industrial park on Blakely, on Greentown Road. Yet encourage people to move to parcels over there, because with the Blakely being residential, with the proposal coming forth for some residential development opposite Lens Cove Park on Broadway, we can create something more compatible with that residential street. The sewer plant in the back, all right, you need a little buffer, but the sewer plant's not noisy and you really don't smell it until you get right on top of it. So just a thought. Discuss it. Say that guy Nick was out of his mind, or that guy Nick had a good idea, either way, but I'd like to throw that idea out there. And that's it. Thank you to everybody.
Thank you, Nick. I'm not going to comment tonight.
No, don't have to comment on
I-
it. Just throwing the idea out there. That's how things start.
Well,
You
I
throw
want you to
ideas out.
continue with the LWRP. I want you to finish that because
Okay,
you've been involved from the beginning. The group we had with the LWRP was a great group. I mean, you guys really did a lot of work on that. So I'm not going to,
okay. we'll
change
talk about
that.
Sure,
And-
thank you.
yeah, definitely.
Thank you very much.
And I'm inviting both of you to the May meeting. And then I'll make my comments at the May meeting, because I know you're not going to be around in April. So
Right, thank you.
I will make my comments, working with you guys.
Okay, thanks.
And thank you for being patient with me.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's a challenge dealing with me, huh, Rich?
Oh, yeah.
It's all about the village, though. It's all about the village.
Right.
Deputy Mayor Richard Funchin, what do you have for us?
Well, first, I'd like to compliment our opposers, Mr. Stewart, Mr. Laker, and I wish them well. I used to work for the federal government, and I thought that was bureaucratic. But the state is unbelievably bureaucratic, because one piece of advice I'd throw down to everybody who's new to this is that you have to get the village to go forward in all the different departments, but many times your hands are tied by regulations that come from the state to say who you can promote, who you can hire, how do you have to do this, how do you have to do that? I mean, some of the things are logical. The county keeps checking on our sewer plant, but I have to say the federal government was not as bureaucratic as all that was. Other people might think so, but it was more organized going up. The state kind of goes side to side, and then you're dealing with the county. So I think it also, to say something that Nick said, it's one thing I found about this, one thing I found out about being a politician is that, which most people don't realize or understand, because most people aren't politicians or get in that job, is that it's an intrusion into your personal life. You have to be active as a politician at the times when you want to be home with your family, on holidays, times like that. You want to show up at all the events that are occurring in and around the county. You're kind of obligated to those particular things. So it is, in that way, intrusive into your personal life, and you got to have support from your family to do that. But I'm ending 47 years of service to the community and the federal government. I worked 35 years for first the Department of Treasury, U.S. Customs, and then the U.S. Customs and Border Protection in Department of Homeland Security. And then 12 years here. It was a privilege to be elected, and it was a privilege to have served the people of Buchanan. And I think Nick has said most of the things here. I'm not going to go on too long, but it was a job that we always put the people of Buchanan ahead of whatever we thought, even our personal opinions. And finally, I'd like to close with that. It was a pleasure being your deputy mayor for 8 years. And Nick has said it all. Teresa, I don't think we could have had anybody take us through this awful time other than somebody like Teresa Knickerbocker. She's worked tirelessly. I've been to so many meetings with her, and I think I went to a lot of meetings with her, and she went to a lot more meetings that I never even attended. So and they're time consuming. And after Indian Point closure, there was a lot of this, politicking between the state, the governor's office, I mean, I'll be blunt, some of these committees that Teresa and meetings I had to attend were nothing but political shams, kind of. I think one thing that disappointed me in all the years since we did that is we asked and asked and asked and asked for the governor to show up and talk to us, to sit down and talk to us. And he sent some representative, but Teresa here did so much work with that. And I believe the part of the pilots that we had, both Nick and Teresa were involved in negotiating those things. I was involved in negotiating the highway department and also started out involved with the police department. So I appreciate the time that I had here, and I'm 73, and I think it's time to move on towards retirement where I can be really retired. And I'm looking at, I've got plenty of paperwork at home and stuff that I'm going to bring in. And for our two new trustees, I'll give it to Marcus, and you could take a look at it that I've kept in over the years. Some of it, unfortunately, gets antiquated pretty quickly. As I said, to go back, not to harp on it, but you're going to hear from people in the village, and then you got the state telling you, no, you can't do that. Like one of the suggestions, going around doing the canvassing, somebody said, well, why don't we hire all part-time police officers? And that's an easy thing to say. Yeah, and somebody would say, well, then you don't have to pay benefits and everything like this. But you got to deal with the state, and you got to deal with your community. And like Nick brought up, the community obviously they want full-time police officers. So that's what we have, full-time police officers. But even those things, you're trying to hire, when you hire a chief or a sergeant, I mean, Shane's not going to be there forever. Eventually, I mean, he's going to want to retire. Yeah, I mean, he's going. Yeah, and that's the other thing. As a politician, you have no control over somebody who comes in one day and says, "I'm retiring." Yeah. And unfortunately, if it's somebody who is really an important cog, you're screwed in a way. So I wish you the best. I think you will. You'll put Buchanan residents, and I think you'll put the needs of the village before your own personal needs. I think that's the most common thing. And last but not least, there's no like right wing, left wing down here, or Democrat, Republican. It's basically kitchen talk. I always said to me, well, what's it like? I said, it's like, your wife wants a new kitchen and you want to buy a new car. I'll let you answer that question. Who wins? Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Can I just?
Sure. Go
So,
ahead.
geez,
You want to answer the
so
question?
unlike, Trustee Funchin, who's 73 and really old, I'm only 72. So I've got at least,
8
like
months.
the cat has 9 lives. I figure I at least have a couple left.
Let me tell you, out campaigning with these two, I was dragging behind them. Okay, I just wanted to tell you that. But since the 2017 announced closure announcement of Entergy, it has been a fight. And, it has been a major fight to keep this village together. And don't think it was easy, fighting with the state. And I remember the first meeting, I'll never forget it. And the state task force meeting. And I had asked the question, so what's the plan B? Crickets. I'm like, okay, so what's the plan B? There was never a plan B for us. There was never a plan B to anything. It was just like, we got it closed, that's it. And we'll figure it out later on. So yeah, it's the village was lucky to have the board they had. These guys were just unbelievable. After we finally stopped breathing out of a paper bag for a while, we had a meeting quickly after that and spoke to the residents. And, there's no book that's written on what do you do when your nuclear power plant closes at your
Right.
largest source of income and your largest employer. Like, what do you do? So it was really, just going forward, keeping the faith that we would survive, looking at the different options. I remember that first meeting with the village, and I had said, look, all the options are on the table. We're going to look at everything, and we're going to figure this out. And 5 years later, we still have some bumps in the road. We still have some challenges ahead, but we've really gotten through the worst of it. And I was fortunate to have a board that, would work with me and wouldn't pass out when the announcement was done. We were determined that we were gonna work through things, and we were gonna help the village survive. And my mantra always with this board and my other board was, it's all about the village. It's all about the village. It's not about us. It's about the village, and we went into survival mode. Some of the things you might not have agreed with that we did, but we always did it what was in the best interest of the village. And I knew each and every one of my board members, in their heart, they felt that way. So that made my job 10 times easier. We didn't always agree, but that's okay. That's okay. We were
No,
able to.
You gotta have different opinions.
Yeah. So, but, because I have to laugh, sometimes, oh, yeah. They just, no. Behind the scenes, we had some interesting discussions. But as I said, it was always, always, always about the village. And I was very lucky. So anyhow, but I want you guys to
We'll
come in
still
May.
visit at Christmas.
Hopefully I get a Christmas gift this year. Anyhow, so I'm sorry. So I do want you guys to come at the May meeting. I want to say a few other things, but right
Thank
now
you.
we're not ready. Trustee Capicati, do you have anything for us
Well,
tonight?
Well, how do I follow up with that? I just hope that,
It'll be fine.
I hope that we can get as much accomplished as Nick and Rich have done with you. I want to thank you guys for your service as a village resident for a long time. And, I know I'm new to this, and, the year that I've had with you guys, I appreciate it. I've learned a lot from both of you, especially Nick, because he likes to talk a little bit more than Rich.
Just a little. Notice that.
Thank you. I don't.
So.
All the long meetings got blamed on me.
So I remember my first, I think maybe my second meeting. I think we went to like almost 11:15.
Yeah.
And I was
we
like,
had
what
long
did I
meetings.
get myself into?
We did that on purpose just to
Yeah.
indoctrinate you, yeah.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I appreciate it. So I hope we can keep up like they kept up with you, Mayor. And I know you guys went through tough times, and we got tough times ahead. And I feel that, we'll be cohesive with each other and try and get things done. Keep the political stuff aside and just work together.
Yeah.
And I think that's the only way we're going to be able to be successful as a village.
Yeah.
Very good.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate working with you too,
Thank you.
and I hope to see you around.
Thank you,
You
Anthony.
will.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, the first couple of years I was on the board, I was all gung ho. I had a laundry list. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And we argued a lot.
Mhm.
We didn't get along at all.
But we still love each other.
But then slowly I
Wow, I
learned how to,
don't know about that.
work better with everybody, with the
Yeah.
mayor especially, and we all just got a lot done, But in
a
the
lot.
beginning, I was a little argumentative.
Little antsy.
I can't
maybe.
see that.
No,
I can't see that at all, but you did get work done. That's evident.
absolutely.
yeah.
It's about the village.
Yeah, thanks.
And congratulations, Steve and Dan. I'm not sure if Dan is on, but we'll be catching up with Dan.
Marcus, can you show us the drop down of who's attending the meeting? The people that participants?
I do not see Steve or Dan.
Steve-
Steve is here.
Steve's with
Oh,
us.
Steve is there. No, Dan is not on. I mean, you have Ali.
Hey, Steve, well, you're on TV.
Hey, Steve, how are you?
Good, Marcus. How are you?
Good. So I don't see, there's a person by the name of Sneakers. So I don't know who that is.
Is that Sneakers? Is that you, Dan Stewart?
It could be Dan.
Okay, we'll be talking soon. Sean, what do you have for us? tonight?
Could just
Oh, I'm
one
sorry.
second, I have to excuse myself because I have to get get
Oh,
home,
sure.
because my hospital's supposed to call.
No, sure.
All right.
Sorry
about that.
yeah.
I'll leave this here. Or
Okay.
for the-
Oh,
for the-
sure. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry
Prayers
to
to your,
interrupt, Sean.
prayers to your son.
Right, thank you.
Yes, Rich.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Rich's son has been very ill, and he just had a liver replacement, a liver transplant, and a kidney transplant. So he's this just happened recently, so he's still in the hospital. He's doing okay. So prayers for his son. Sean, what do you have
Thank
for
you,
us
Mayor.
tonight?
I just wanted to apologize to everybody for not being there today. When I
Oh.
read the extension of the open meetings law, I just assumed that we were going to be remote. I didn't read the top of the agenda, so I'm sorry about that. I want to thank, I'm sorry, Rich left, but I want to thank Nick and Rich for the long time that they spent in the village. I remember when we first ran together in 2010, it took a little convincing to get you guys on board because, it was a very hostile time back then. And I know
Oh, yeah.
Nick was a little bit more excited to come on than Rich was. Rich required a little bit more coaxing, but it was kind of funny when we were going door to door and the conversations that we had. I'm glad we really got to know each other in those first couple of elections. And just like what we had brought to the board back in 2010, we had a whole bunch of new, fresh ideas, and we had a whole bunch of different perspectives. Nick had one perspective, Rich had another one, and I had another one. And we were able always to cull them through the reinstatement of the workshop meetings, through the open communications, and we were able to come together and come to a conclusion that was beneficial to everybody. I don't know how many hurt feelings there were in the beginning. We had a lot of unanimous votes, and we did accomplish a ton of things. And I remember that you were still working, Nick, and I don't think Rich was still working. So, it took a lot of time. You were commuting down to the city and coming up and doing all the meetings that we were having. We were having extra workshop meetings and had a lot of lawsuits and things that we had to settle. And, it took a lot of duty and dedication to the residents of the village. And I didn't know how much time it took. When I was a trustee in 2008, things were a little, were very combative, let me put it this way. And I was glad that when we got all together in 2010, we were able to turn the village around and we were able to make it more conducive to people getting involved. And I really did enjoy that time. And I did, some of Rich's concerns were not the same as your concerns, were not the same as my concerns or the mayor's concerns. So it was kind of hard to put an agenda together that would satisfy everybody and still move us forward, but we were able to accomplish that. And one thing that I've tried to instill in the two new trustees is the amount of time that it is going to take. And I am kind of excited to move forward because it reminds me of the way we were in 2010, because they have all different ideas that a lot of people hadn't thought of and that I haven't thought of. So it's still, I believe the village is still going to move forward. We're going to have the same missions to make things better for every resident. And I really look forward to it, but none of this could have taken place without Nick and Rich and you, Mayor, when we were on the board in 2010. So it's exciting times. So I just want to thank you guys for everything you've done for the village and the time that you've put forward. So thanks a lot.
Appreciate it, Sean. Thanks.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All right, any comments from the audience?
I just wanted to take a minute and just thank both Rich, I know that he's up with
Yeah.
Nick.
Do you need him to go to the mic?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Sure.
And announce who you are, because not everybody will know.
Okay. I'm Steve Laker. But yeah, I just wanted to take a minute to really thank both Rich and Nick for your time and dedication to the village. I hope that you're available for any feedback or anything.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to be in the audience. I'm going to be all over you guys.
I'm just looking forward to working with the board and working with you, Mayor, and
Thank you.
getting things going.
Looking forward to
Thank you,
working with
Steve.
too.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks. Steve.
Congratulations, Steve.
Congrats.
So if you're gonna be in the audience,
I don't get to vote, but I get,
do you have, what time is your bedtime?
I go to sleep about 3 a.m.
Oh, great.
Super.
You could have late meetings. It's okay.
That sounds great.
Something to look forward to, right, Anthony?
Yeah.
Okay, so no other comments. I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session over
I'm
proposed
sorry,
litigation.
Mayor. Mayor, I'm
Yes.
sorry. Eileen has a hand raised. Do you want?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't see it, Eileen. I apologize. I didn't see it.
Okay, Eileen, you can speak.
Okay, thank you. Nick, I go to bed at 2 o'clock. So Anthony, we're ready for your late.
Oh, great.
Yes,
You know, it was different when we were all on Zoom, you know, I'm sitting in my pajama bottoms with a nice shirt on. Now I'm in here.
I know,
So,
but you look very handsome, so don't
thank
worry.
you. Thank you, Eileen. Thank you. I'm
Okay.
excited. I'll stay with you all night if you want.
Okay. I just want to thank Nick and Rich for their years of service. Nick, I will be in the audience with you, whether we're on Zoom or whether we're in person.
Yes. Yes.
And Teresa, and the rest of the board, I wish Dan and Steve and all of you a future of good work for the village residents, and look forward to it. So thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Eileen.
Thanks, Eileen.
Okay, anyone else have their hands raised?
No,
Good?
no one else.
Okay, so I would like to make a motion to go into exec session over proposed litigation, contractual negotiations, and advice of counsel.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.